What's going on YouTube? It is your boy GZTV here, back with another video, and this is probably the first movie review we've done in a couple weeks. And I decided, that I'm going to start editing these videos a lot more because these are things, movies are really the only things we do once a week, so I figured, we could take a lot of time here and cover this. And for today's movie, we can do like a movie of the week thing, honestly. We have No Country for Old Men. It's a 2007 American neo-western crime thriller. And yeah, there's a 2005 novel that accompanies the film. We'll go over the plot. We'll go over kind of like some common reviews, some gripes people have about the movie, some positives, and yeah, that's how it's going to go. This is a completely spoiler review. So let's get into the plot here. So, kind of a general overview of what the plot of the movie is. It takes place in 1980. It takes place in Texas, and it follows a hitman by the name of Anton Chigurh, who's played by Javier Bergman, I think is his name. He gets arrested. And while he's in custody, he strangles a deputy sheriff and uses a penetrating air-powered captive bolt pistol to kill a stranger on the highway and escape in his car. So pretty much this guy goes on a little bit of a killing spree, strangles a deputy, kills a random on the road. And yeah, that air gun is going to be a very iconic part of this film, so don't you worry. He spares the life of a gas station owner who correctly guesses the result of Chigurh's coin toss, and he has a really long, interesting conversation that really builds the character and kind of develops him for the rest of the film. Meanwhile, we are following a retired, I don't know what he worked as before, but a retired pretty much like trailer park guy, Llewellyn Moss, who's hunting pronghorns in the desert, obviously not a very fortunate guy, and he comes across the aftermath of a drug deal gone wrong. He finds several dead men and dogs on the scene, a wounded Mexican man begging for water, drugs in a vehicle, and $2 million in a briefcase. So obviously he leaves the scene, he goes on, he finds this guy laying against a tree. He's like the ultimo cowboy, ultimo lobo, like the guy that won the fight pretty much is like a Western term. And obviously I don't cover a lot of Western movies on here, but yeah. So he takes the money, returns home without any trouble. Feeling guilty. He returns with water, but finds the man dead. This guy's like asking for agua. He's like agua, agua, agua. And he returns, and I don't know why the hell he was thinking he would have been alive, but he finds the man dead. So 2 men in a truck pursue him. He escapes into a river. A dog chases after him, but he shoots the dog, unfortunately. When he gets home, he sends his wife Carla Jean to stay with her mother, then takes a taxi to a motel in Del Rio, where he hides the briefcase in his room's air duct. So he's sending his wife away to protect her from these, like, Spanish cartel members, I guess, like Mexican cartel members. Meanwhile, Chigurh, who is hired to recover the money, arrives to search Moss's home, where he uses his bolt pistol to blow the lock of the door. So you can't lock your doors around this guy. He's gonna find you, and he's going to kill you. There's no negotiating with this guy. Oh, it says right there it's Bardem. It's a Javier Bardem. It says right on the title on my the movie poster. My bad. So he breaks in. He leaves without a trace. Well, obviously he drinks some milk, but investigating the break-in, Terrell County Sheriff Ed Tombell observes the blown-out lock, and he sees like a little inscription on the wall, and he's like, well, where the hell did this come from? Following a tracking device and the money, Chigurh goes to Moss's hotel room and kills a group of Mexicans waiting to ambush Moss. These guys are trying to get the money, but Chigurh was hired to get the money himself, so it's kind of a fight. It's like a triangular war there. Moss has rented a second room adjacent to the Mexican's room with access to the duct where the money is hidden. He retrieves the briefcase before Chigurh opens the duct and runs off with it. So, yeah, it's pretty much like a cat and mouse chase now, because a lot of the Mexicans are being like eliminated, and Chigurh is chasing Moss around. Moving to a hotel in the border town of Eagle Pass, Moss discovers the tracking device, but Chigurh has already found him, and yeah, he would destroy it, but it's already too late for that. Their firefight spills onto the streets, killing a bystander and wounding both. So Moss flees across to Mexico, stashing the case of money along the Rio Grande. So yeah, that was probably one of the more iconic fights, like at Eagle Pass. That was fucking awesome. Finding Moss severely injured, a passing Norteño band takes him to a hospital. Carson Wells, another hired operative played by the wonderful Woody Harrelson, fails to persuade Moss to accept protection in return for the money. Like, we will protect you from this hitman. Because, yeah, if you don't have the money, he might leave you alone, but in Shigeru's case, he's going to kill you, either way. Shigeru cleans and stitches his own wounds with stolen supplies and sneaks up on Wells at his hotel. This is obviously a guy with a target on his back because he's offering to help Moss. Unsuccessfully bartering for his life, Wells is murdered by Shigeru. Moss telephones the room, intending to bargain with Wells, but Shigeru answers the call instead and vows to kill Carla Jean unless Moss gives up the money. Obviously, Shigeru went into his house and realized he has a family, and he's pretty much using that against him at this point. Moss retrieves the case from the Rio Grande and arranges to meet Carla Jean at a motel in El Paso, where he plans to give her the money and hide her from danger. Like, you can just have all the fucking money and live well off, because I know I'm gonna die. This guy doesn't quit. Sorry about that. Let's see. Carla Jean is approached by Sheriff Bell, who promises to protect Moss. Carla Jean's mother knowingly reveals Moss's location to a group of Mexicans, tailing them. So, like, yeah, this is where we stay. And she pretty much sets up Moss without even knowing. Bell reaches the motel rendezvous at El Paso, only to hear gunshots and spot a pickup truck speeding from the motel. Bell shows up. He finds Moss dead at the scene in his motel room. Carla Jean arrives minutes later and understands from Bell's expression that Llewellyn, that's not Llewellyn, it's Llewellyn, is dead. That night, Bell returns to the crime scene and observes the lock blown out, like it's the same perpetrator from their house. Shigeru appears to hide behind the door of the room, but when Bell hesitantly enters, he finds the room empty. He sees the vent cover removed, obviously, like, this is where they were hiding the drugs. Later, Bell visits his Uncle Ellis, an ex-lawman, and tells him he plans to retire because he feels overmatched by the recent violence. I mean, Shigeru is no man to fuck with. This is no country for old men. That's why the show is called that. Ellis tells Bell of a story in which a lawman, Bell's great uncle, was killed on his own porch, and says that the region has always been violent. I mean, it's the Western times. You're not going to get very many calm things because people are always outlaws and trying to take things. Weeks later, Carla Jean returns from her mother's funeral to find Shigeru waiting in her bedroom. She refuses his offer of a coin toss for her life, stating that he cannot pass blame to luck. The choice is his. Shigeru checks his boots as he leaves the house. As he drives through the neighborhood, he is injured in a car crash in an intersection, but survives. He then bribes two young witnesses for their silence, and flees, gives them a $100 bill, which is obviously a lot for a little kid. He checks his boots, which pretty much means that he killed Carla Jean. Now, that's up to speculation. That's kind of something the show wanted you to interpret. The Coen brothers did really good in directing this film. Obviously, they've directed other Western films, but I haven't watched them. So, now retired, this is kind of the end of the story. Bell shares two dreams with his wife. In the first, he lost some money his father had given him. In the other, he and his father were riding through a snowy mountain pass. His father had gone ahead to make a fire in the darkness and wait for Bell. So that's kind of an interesting ending. I mean, it could have ended a little better. Honestly, the Shigeru ending would have worked a little better. But, yeah. You know, we can get into the critical reception, so let's go. So obviously the main big thing of this film is Javier Bardem and his role as Anton Chigurh. Talking about a couple critical sites, Rotten Tomatoes had a 93%, 289 critics, 8.8 out of 10. This movie is bolstered by powerful lead performances from Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, and Tommy Lee Jones. No Country for Old Men finds the Coen brothers spinning cinematic gold out of Cormac McCarthy's grim, dark, funny novel. We got a 9.1 out of 10 on Metacritic with 37 reviews. This is universally acclaimed across the Western universe at least. This was a possible candidate for several Oscars for the time. It received 8 nominations. It won 4 in 2008. Yeah, Javier Bardem. That's the man everyone's talking about, of course. It's the best of the Coen brothers' careers probably ever. I haven't really heard much of them as directors before this, and this movie was just fucking phenomenal. What makes it such a standout is hard to put your finger on. It just feels like an absorbing, intense 2 hours where everyone is absolutely on top of their job and a comfortable fit in their roles. The film exerts a grip from start to end. This is probably one of the best films of 2007, if I had to guess. After 2 decades of being brilliant on the movie margins, the Coens are ready for their close-up and maybe their Oscar. And they did get an Oscar, so these are kind of reviews I'm reading. BBC gave this like a perfect score. It doesn't require defense. It is a magnificent return to form. For formalists, those moviegoers sent into raptures by tight editing, nimble camera work, and faultless sound design, it's pure heaven. 5 out of 5 on ABC. Yeah, it's got visual language, its suspense is all great. You know, Hitchcock wouldn't have done the suspense better, and we know Alfred Hitchcock to be an absolutely legendary movie director. You know, there were occasional people that didn't like the movie. The absence of a central character and climactic scene was kind of questionable. The finish was kind of disappointing. Dependence on an arbitrarily manipulated plots. You know, a lack of soul and sense of hopelessness. You kind of knew where everyone was going, but that's every Western film, let's be honest. Chigurh never develops as a character. I mean, I disagree with that because, like, the gas station scene alone, really. With material as strong as this, one would think they could do better than impute to him a sprawling inscrutability, a mystery that is merely pathological. It's full of pseudo-profundities in which the Coen brothers have always specialized. Chigurh's weapons are unintentionally funny, which is, like, there should be a little bit of humor in this film. Like, they're kind of making fun of Western times in a way. It's all chase, which means that it offers almost zero in character development. I guess, like, once the chase begins, that makes sense. Each of the figures is given a la standard thriller operating procedure, a single moral or psychological attitude, and then acts in accordance to that principle and nothing else, without doubts, contradictions, or ambivalence. So yeah, I'm going to get to like my overall review of the film. This is me just kind of reading critics. So overall, this movie is fucking amazing, and this is a really good way to introduce someone to the Western space of movies. I really recommend anyone that hasn't watched this to watch it. I don't know why it's taken me so long. I've heard of this Anton Chigurh character for a while on YouTube, everywhere. Movie critics everywhere are talking about this movie. I had to check it out, and I did, and I didn't regret it. 2 hours feels like a blur because it was such an interesting movie. There wasn't really any time in this movie where I'd zone out. You know, usually in my movie reviews, if you guys have watched me before, I've definitely kind of zoned out. But, I don't have a rating system for movies, so I'm going to leave it at that. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think of this movie. Every single week we are going to be covering a big movie. Obviously, I've watched a fuck ton of them. And I just ordered a movie poster, like a top 100 horror films. And I'm going to be scratching off as we go. And I'm probably going to start doing that on the channel. So, I'm out, everyone. Peace out.